but it was definitely scary at times. Even doctors were kind of diagnosing me with a disorder for anxiety. I think it's tough at times. It hits you when you're least expecting it sometimes. Introverts, I think, often can get misinterpreted with that. You can be an introvert and still get by in the world, but I think a lot of people doubt themselves when it comes to those struggles. They're not always expecting it, but always bet on yourself. That really will go a long way.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Highest Version Podcast. I'm your host, Randy Philivong, and on this podcast, we talk about falling in love with the process of getting better every day, becoming the highest version of ourselves. Today's guest is Lucas Van DeVenter, a hometown homie who has the great athleticism to play D3 college tennis. He traded in hitting tennis balls for hitting the keyboard as he revisited one of his most passionate activities, which is writing, as he's coming out with a new book centered around overcoming mental health struggles and overcoming dealing with society's expectations. So without further ado, let's welcome our guest, Lucas. What's up, Lucas? How you doing, man?
Pretty good. Thanks for the intro. Appreciate it.
Thank you for coming up and driving all this way. I know it's about a 2-hour drive from Ellington, and it's never easy. It's never also dealing with Massachusetts drivers. So yeah. Sorry to all my Massachusetts fans, but you guys know what's real. So, man, before we get into any of our questions today, I just want to go into the featured Funko Pop of the episode. And today's Funko Pop is Moon Knight. So to kind of explain Moon Knight as a character, as a superhero, he kind of has a dichotomy to himself. So he has the one side of himself named Steven, and that's the person that's more reserved and more like kind of on the quieter end and really just kind of just sticking with, society flow and stuff like that. The other side is Mark, who has that ambitious, intensive kind of personality where that resonates in terms of you when you're ambitious with, your career, your writing, anything that you do, at least in my experience when we were on the same tennis team together. So I guess I just want to get your reflections on, my comparison to you and Moon Knight and those certain factors.
Yeah, definitely similarities with that for sure. I think in sports, it can kind of fluctuate. I think you've seen that as a fellow tennis teammate in high school. It comes and goes sometimes. Sometimes it's just a good day, a bad day, but you kind of feed off of high energy and you kind of go by the day. And I think that's a big influence in how I carry myself. If I'm not feeling the greatest, then I'm probably not going to have as much energy, probably just going to be more reserved, feed off of other people. But when I'm feeling right, feeling good, usually when I'm playing a sport, playing tennis, I feel great, ready to, get the ball rolling and hitting. So I think there's definitely similarities with Moon Knight where I do have a reserved role when it comes to me, but I have also the capability of taking it a little level higher and kind of exceeding those possibilities for myself. So yeah, for sure. I see that.
Yeah, man. I let's kind of revisit how we met. Gonna kind of give people an introduction of how we know each other, why you're in that chair today.
Yeah.
So me and Lucas, we were on the same tennis team together, and I was a senior, just saying, hey, like why not? It's my last year. I want to do different type of sport, right? So I joined the tennis team, and I think this is where we had our probably official first meet. I'm not sure because how we're 1 year apart from each other, right?
Yeah, 1 year.
Yeah. So I guess before that time, did you know of me at all, or was that tennis the first time that we actually met each other?
Yeah, I knew of you, other friends, just kind of hanging out with other people, getting to know other people, but definitely from tennis that helped us get a little closer and getting to know you, which was great opportunity for being a part of a tennis team like that. It was a really fun time.
Yeah, and let me tell you guys, he is a great tennis player. I mean, number 2, right? Number 2 in singles, right?
Yeah.
Yep. And I was down there, number 3 at doubles. So nowhere near close there. So that kind of shows how much he can really hit that ball. But yeah, man, it's tennis was a great time and a great experience for me. I wish I did it sooner. I wish I was part of your kind of all the way through. You got to see some great players, like a great tennis player. I think he was All-State, Michael Fox. I think he was one.
For sure. Yeah.
You got, I think, Kevin Cisco, some names ringing a bell, all that stuff.
Yeah, definitely.
All great players.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's that's why you're in chair today. But there's another reason why you're in the chair today. But let's dive into the first initial questions to get kind of your backstory. But even before I want to do that, there's a lot of pre-questions to these pre-questions. The question that I like to ask a lot of people is, how is your mental health nowadays?
Yeah, I think I have it under control now. There were times where I felt I didn't have it, in my grasp, not really getting a true understanding of my mental health. I think it's tough at times. It hits you when you're least expecting it sometimes, and mental health is important. It's what grounds you. It's what motivates you. So if you don't have your mental health ready and intact, nothing else will really kind of set yourself for that success you want. Mm-hmm. And I think there's definitely that correlation with physical health where you're working out. And I see it in sports or activities that I play in. If your mental health is just slightly off, your capabilities in sports and exercise, it just doesn't feel right. You don't feel like your true self at times. I feel like if your mental health is just a little off, sometimes my serve is just different and I'm not getting the right pop off the serve, or I'm not getting the right forehand, not the right top spin off it. And you can get more down on yourself if your mental health isn't where it should be.
Right.
And that goes with other things, but for in general, in the larger scale of things, I feel like my mental health has gotten better. I understand when it comes, when I feel like the darker days are coming, and I try to plan for it. I try to prepare myself so I don't feel so down on myself, because it's just not good. It's not healthy for you to stay, with those sad feelings that you get with poor mental health. But with anything, it takes practice. It takes, time. But I think I'm getting better with it for sure with my mental health.
Yeah. Let's kind of dive into that deeper. When did you realize that your mental health was as important as physical health?
I definitely think it happened halfway through college, probably my junior year, so more than halfway. But when COVID hit, that really struck a chord for me. I think just with people that I met, talking, kind of feeling isolated just in general with quarantine and everything, mental health just kind of was all over the place, well, for me personally. But I think from that, experience and getting to know more myself by being kept into my room or being isolated more, I felt things kind of going past me and not really staying in stride with it. And I think that's when my mental health kind of slipped, where I was more down on myself, not really having a sport to go off of to stay active, when I was just like staying still. Yeah. And for me, like, I have to stay in motion in order to like keep going, to keep pursuing better things. So when I'm still, I feel like that's when mental health kind of hits me in a way that I'm not expecting it. And I think that junior year was really life-changing, eye-opening to experience that the feeling of how, for a while, I thought, if your physical health is good, you're running, you're good, you're staying healthy. But if your mental health, if you're not determined to get out there to do it, that can also be detrimental. So both things are equally important.
Yeah, it's kind of a crazy eye opener when you realize how much your mental capacity or your mental ability affects your physical health. Like when I was going through my own depression, I really thinking wise, wanted to do stuff, but because my mental health was so poor, I couldn't move. And that hurt me a lot, because just like yourself, physical movement was something that I was passionate about. I always wanted to move, but my brain was my mental health was so poor that it couldn't function physically. When you were being isolated and not have movement and just didn't have movement, what were some things that you started practicing at first when you kind of had that realization?
Yeah, I definitely resorted back to my passion in life. Writing was something I kind of strayed away from writing for a bit because I was so active and I was out there in my community in Ellington, where I grew up most of my life. And then to college, I just found other activities and things that were keeping me going. But when that kind of stopped, all I had was, me and myself trying to cooperate and trying to get a gooder or better understanding of where I'm at in my life. And I think that kind of took a toll on me, feeling like I wasn't pushing myself. And something with me is I need that push, that extra push, and sports helped me. Those activities helped me. And when those kind of went away, that's where I saw some changing and ways that I need to get better. And the writing kind of opened that up for me. That was a discovery for me to say, wow, you can actually do writing in a better, as an escape mechanism, pretty much, to kind of give yourself that freedom to like release all those hurtful feelings, the depression you talk about that other people can feel. You can talk about that in other ways. You don't have to always express it vocally. It can be said on paper and communicated the same way. People see it in the same light.
Yeah.
So,
You actually moved away from writing as it was an early passion, like childhood, like growing up.
Yeah.
What made you move away from it at first?
Yeah. I just felt like with writing in high school, I really didn't have much of a talent with writing. A few of my English teachers even told me, funny enough, they told me that writing wasn't in my future. They said,
"Jeez,"
they said writing wasn't my strong suit.
Talk about
I
building
can still
the
remember
future,
that vividly because I was trying to move up from sophomore year to junior year into like a more college prepared class for English, because I felt like that was something I liked. But my teachers were kind of telling me something different. So that's what kind of gave me that doubt that I like maybe didn't have it with me. And so even though I went into a major purely for journalism and writing, I still didn't feel quite like it was for me, like it was something that I was destined to have as a passion. Until later, when it was all that really helped me get going and to find the light at the end of the tunnel for me. So yeah,
it's so wild that a teacher would actually say that to a student. As someone's like, you could say anything else, anything around that besides this isn't cut out for you. I mean, I guess there's certain points, but that's just terrible teaching. All right.
It's kind of, I kind of use that. I kind of joke a little bit with it, try to make light of it. I tell myself it's kind of like my MJ backstory.
I took it personally.
Yeah.
Now going back to that COVID time, you were isolated, and it's kind of like suffering in silence, right? It's just like I think life before COVID, we were just on autopilot. Like we were just going through our normal routines, especially you as a college athlete. Your schedule's booked damn near the whole day. So you don't really have to think about what you're going to do next, right?
Yeah.
And now that time is slowed down, the world slowed down, what thoughts really got to you that gave you that self-doubt and anxiety and depressive thoughts?
Yeah. Well, I think like when people say like when you're stopped, that's when depression hits. And it truly, like, I didn't have that in mind when it happened to me, but all those anxious thoughts you get, I was feeling anxious, not in a way that I really felt before. It's kind of foreign to me at times, very new to me, feeling anxiety. I'd never really been on that realm of those darker days. And I've always been, aggressive with how I want to put myself out there and kind of be confident. But at the same time, I was also feeling a burden on myself, this heavy weight on my shoulders just kind of kept bringing me down. And that was very, it was detrimental for a lot of things, for kind of stayed away from hanging out with friends for that whole junior year. Just trying to figure out a way to navigate those anxieties I was feeling, trying to get into some therapy to talk to doctors, because I just couldn't find an answer at times. And that was really getting to me as well, because I always felt in college, growing up, I always had a way to to get out of those problems, to get out of that rut that I was in. And COVID really changed that. I was really, for so long, I didn't realize how stuck I was in place, where I wasn't moving as much as other people were, or as other things were happening in front of me. A lot of jobs were being shut down. So it was a tough time for me to experience, but definitely a learning experience as well for me to get that kind of those negative feelings so early in life. I try to find that silver lining in everything. Yeah. So I look at it as a point to learn from and to overcome it. And I'm glad I got out of that rut that I was in. But it was definitely scary at times. Even doctors were kind of diagnosing me with a disorder for anxiety that I just never really thought I had. And yeah, it was scary.
Yeah, man. Anxiety, when you first come upon it, is very scary.
Yeah.
The thing with anxiety is that anxiety comes from something that we're scared of. So, at that moment back then, like, what was the thing you were scared of? Because as you were talking, it sounds more like, future aspirations, your career, or, what you're going to do, for the rest of your life. I guess, what were you scared of at the time?
I think I felt a future getting away from me, and I wasn't really staying in the present moment. I was always looking ahead, trying to stay, in stride with what was coming. But with everything going on, it was hard to stay in that stride because we're, reduced to online video chats. There were not a whole lot of face-to-face interactions where you can gauge people's emotions and feelings. We don't have a whole lot of human interaction that can also affect that mental health. And I wasn't always getting that acceptance or approval from other people because I was just staying so reserved and staying kept to myself. That's when I really noticed that realization that I'm focusing too much on the future, that I really have to stay in the present moment that people, advocate to do. So from podcasts, from reading, I learned to find the light in the present moment, to try to find a better way out of those scary thoughts and feelings.
Yeah. No, I think I've had a similar experience too, where especially in high school, with college, like, it's an anxious thing, right? Because you are applying to all these colleges and you want to make sure you're going to a college that will help support your career and the career that we think we want to have. It's crazy. Yeah. At 16, we have to figure out what career we want to do, right? Yeah. And major and all that stuff. But anyways, it's such a crazy thing because that thought is something that people our age are also experiencing now too. That's with maybe also career, like yourself, marriage, having kids. Like, there's a timeline that we all try to align with. It's like kind of, I like to quotation it of like a sacred timeline, but a timeline that it's not real. It's like what society's timeline is of, having kids by, X, Y, and Z, whatever. And it makes us look far ahead and not focus on, where our feet is. Tell me a little bit more about, I guess, what you learned about being in the present and how important that is for you and your mental health.
Yeah. It's honestly a gift if you can stay in that mindset. That's why people say a present, it's a gift to stay in that mindset because you're not worried about what's going to happen or what already happened. You're just content with being yourself, finding that middle ground. And that's really important because you don't, in anything you do, if you have that mindset, you're not going to feed into those anxious thoughts anymore. You're going to keep that middle ground, that level plane that I like to say, just to not stay too high, too low, but you're just trying to taking it easy and going through the day with that present moment idea and thought. And it's tough at times to stay in the present moment because not every day is the same. You might have setbacks in work or a relationship you're in. So it's not easy to stay in present and to stay with that passion that you have. But it's important to kind of keep a mantra or something that keeps you going to feed into those positive thoughts more. The more you have positive thoughts, the better you'll stay level and not feel too burdened with those stresses and anxiety.
Yeah, no, for sure. And it's crazy that statistically our brain, I think it's like 85% of the day is negative. Like 85% of the thoughts that we have on a daily basis is negative. So it's, in a way, it's so crazy to say like it's easier to think negatively. And even I feel that too. It's so easy to be like, oh, well, I suck at this, or I'm not going to be like this. It's so easy to us. And I think it's because our brain is trying to protect us from something. But with our brain trying to protect us from something, it's actually a detriment to us. And I know you mentioned mantras. I want to get into that later. But I want to talk a little bit more about your healing experience. You know, you mentioned therapy, and I just want to get a synopsis of how is therapy for you? Because everybody has a different experience. I think I have a biased experience in myself saying that it was really positive, but not everyone has that same experience. And I'm just curious about how that was for you, how therapy was for you in your healing journey.
Yeah, I think it's beneficial to get that therapy, to get the guidance, to kind of give you a way to think about those scary thoughts and feelings. But for me, since I'm so reserved and introverted, a lot of times I feel like I can do it myself, and that can be kind of, a little counterintuitive when you're trying to get a therapist to tell you what you should do, or what your mind thinks you should do. Those can sometimes be two different things, and you're like, well, I feel like this, but they're telling me to do this. So you just start questioning some things more, but you certainly get to a conclusion and a better way of thinking. And it definitely takes time to find the right therapist too. At first, I didn't feel like I really had the right person to tell me what I needed. Because in college, I was an athlete, and you had counseling, athletic counseling, but the counselors just kind of generally talk to you with those generic questions, like how are you feeling? Those types of questions, and that's all good, just how to get the basics of who you're dealing with. But I just felt like it was kind of scripted, like they were just reading off paper and not really talking to me like on a deeper level. And that therapy, when you think of it like that, it wasn't as beneficial, but it certainly, once you can find a way to be effective with it, kind of have notes going into therapy of what you thought about that day, what you thought in the past, have something written down so you're not so, you're bogged down, so you don't really have those thoughts. Because when I was going to therapy, all I was thinking was just all the thoughts all at once. I didn't even really have the words to describe what I was going through. They said, what are you feeling like? And I would just say, honestly, I just can't sleep. I can't really think. And I couldn't really even get the words out. It was just so tough to find the right words. So that's also where writing helped me, because I just kind of just wrote down everything that I was feeling, or not feeling right in the moment that I was in. But definitely varies with therapists and therapy, but just have to find the right one and stick with it for sure.
Yeah, it's a interesting point that you bring up, because you went through counseling through, obviously what your school was offering, and it was athletic counseling, so there weren't really as much as a therapist as like more like sports psychologist, I guess you can say. Yeah. And then when you finally went to like a licensed therapist, or one that was more focused on just therapy in general rather than sports, they were able to kind of let you unlock more things in yourself to be able to kind of have that conversation. When you were journaling all your words and all your thoughts, did you have a format, or was it just a word vomit of like, this is what I'm feeling and going at it?
Yeah, pretty much just word vomit. Whatever I was feeling like just during that moment, it would help me sleep better too. Just getting it out there is just kind of, it's like out there, just a release pretty much with all the burden that it took on me. But the writing was very eye-opening. I'll say that again, because I didn't think you could use writing in that way. I just thought you could create these fantasy stories. That's the way I thought about writing as being an author. That's where I kind of started out, just writing books just for fun and not really seeing a whole future with it. But later on, I was like, I might have better ideas by just, you can create stories out of anything really. So I just use that idea and method to go about therapy and everything that I was feeling so negatively about. So yeah, definitely eye-opening for sure.
Yeah, I mean, how could you know that writing was an escapement if someone told you sucked at it? So just kidding. I'm still on that, and that's still fucked up.
Yeah, it's a little crazy.
There's an interesting thing that you also brought up too. I mean, you're saying a lot of interesting things right now, but the fact that during that time of COVID, and you were saying there wasn't a lot of face-to-face interaction, but you described your personality as more of a reserved person. So I feel like if you're a reserved person, you would thrive in having kind of solidarity, because that's what gives you energy within yourself. Like you have that time to yourself. You're just kind of, what's the word? Kind of having that time with yourself rather than putting energy into other people.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I guess reflecting on that, even though you kind of categorize yourself as reserved, do you think that there actually is more of an extrovert-ness to you more than you thought back then?
Yeah. In different situations, I think I was introverted. I wasn't always going to be the life of the party when I went out with friends and everything. But when I feel like the energy is on me, I feel like I can connect with people. And introverts, I think, often can get misinterpreted with that, because people only think they want to be with themselves. But introverts also like deeper conversations. They like to talk to those meaningful people, but not just everyone. Like, they don't want small talk all the time. That's something they really hate, honestly. The elevator talk that everyone talks about is like something that it doesn't really create much meaning for me. But you just think of things on a deeper level, and that's what introverts want, to kind of balance that social battery that people talk about when it comes to introverts. You just have to manage that. And sometimes parties, I'll just have to skip, like dip out a little early. Just my social battery is draining, so had to step out. That's just some of a limit. Like, that's a limitation when it comes to introverts. It can often feel like you're just drained and bogged down, and that's not really something you want to like keep going in that night with. So I usually just tell myself I'm feeling too like down and not really keeping that same energy. I'll just leave and come back when I'm feeling ready to go again. So
I love that you kind of brought up that perspective, because I have no idea what it's like. I'm sorry, I just like, for me, like, I'm a social like butterfly, and like I'm just like like being around people energizes me. And when I'm by myself, it's like I'm like, oh, like, let me just text somebody, because I don't want to talk to myself right now. I've gotten better at it, obviously, with therapy and, talking to myself and going through those self-doubts and kind of things. But I'm so glad you brought that up, because I mean, my fiance she's an introvert, but she's like 49% extroverted and 51% introverted. So, I mean, it's not like she's heavy on one side. So, but that brings up a good point and a good segue, because let's talk about your book now. In a little bit of the passages that you shared with me, you said we live in a world that was meant to be for extroverted individuals. Let's talk about that, because I have not thought about that perspective at all. Can you dive deeper into what that phrase means and why you also have that perspective?
I think it definitely takes an open mind when I say this, because so many people have that extroverted mindset where you have that almost boastful confidence, and that's intimidating when it comes to introverts. They don't always have that strong of confidence. They work on it. They keep going to have that confidence, but it's not always present. And I learned through other books that I was reading. Susan Cain, who's an author that I just loved her book called Introverts, The Power of Introverts, or The Power of Introverts in a Quiet World. It just talks about how a lot of what we see in society is designed for the extroverted individual. And when I say that, it's more because a lot of things you see, it's you have that strong confidence. People are always saying, speak up more. Why are you so quiet? And it's kind of targeting introverts to speak up when they don't always have that tendency. Mm-hmm. And what Susan Cain brings up a lot is that temperament scale, that not everybody has that quality that is extroverted. That's very a different brain chemical in your brain telling you that you're extroverted. You don't always have that same thought or power to be as extroverted as other people. It's kind of like telling an extroverted person, hey, stop talking. It's kind of on that same level. Mm-hmm. But everything, you're not going to tell somebody to stop talking because they have passion. You have the freedom to speak, so it's a little bit different that way. But you always, on the other end, it's always introverts not meeting that expectation of not talking. And that's where it comes down to, not meeting those expectations, where extroverts have that skill and that introverts don't. And you see that in job interviews, the person that seems more, lively in conversation, that seems more engaged in the conversation, they'll likely get the job over the person that seems more reserved, not really talking as much as the extroverted person. And that's where it kind of gets a little bit more one-sided for the extroverted, not the introvert. But yeah, very interesting stuff through those discoveries and reading things. But yeah, I'm trying to find ways to balance it because, I think just like what you said with your girlfriend, where you kind of see the differences and stuff, but I do still have like extroverted qualities when it comes to, being with people. I love being with my family, with friends. Like I want those connections still. It just kind of has to be a measurement with how I feel that day, or just kind of a gauge of I'm feeling too burdened with, my energy sometimes. So just kind of cut back that day and try it again the next day. Yeah. So just working off of that.
Yeah. That's a very just a interesting perspective, and it kind of opened my eyes because I never really thought about it in that way. It does make sense that, not that it does make sense, but you see statistically that those who are more lively extroverted will, in your example with jobs, you're like that's the person that you notice versus someone that's more reserved. Obviously, I'm not in the HR position. I'm not coordinator. I don't know, but when we kind of hear about, I guess like any job interview, right? Like those are the people that end up getting picked. So how do we you're kind of breaking every stereotype in my head about introverts, because I you just leave it to one thing and just more of like, reserve, But I guess how would you say if someone listening was an introvert, how can they navigate this type of world? How can they navigate that balance that you're talking about? And is that being expressed in the book that you're writing?
Yeah, in my book I talk about how you can meet those expectations, because it can be a lot of pressure trying to meet that expectation people want. It's not always easy to just turn that switch on and start talking. It's not easy for an introvert to do. Just say, hey, speak up more, talk more, man, a few words, all those remarks you get. It can not be as much the one who's saying it, but the one that's dealing with those comments. It gets to you after a while. So in my book, I talk about how you can combat those feelings, how you can still have that power to be your true self, no matter how you are. You can be an introvert and still get by in the world, and still be successful too. You don't always have to have that boastful confidence, that everyone thinks you need. You can find in other ways. You can be kind. You can be genuine. That's what also helps, is just to be genuine, to be honest with your feelings. And with introverts, they tend to be more honest. Because they're observant, they're very thoughtful in their ideas and their talking points. They like to listen actively. So I think if we can kind of work together with extroverted introverts to kind of meet that middle, to talk about how we can have those meaningful conversations, so you can let those introverts in on conversations more and don't feel like they're secluded from it, or don't feel like you have to put them on the spot. Just if they're maybe not talking, they probably don't want to talk. That's just how it is. You just have to deal with it. It might be tough for that extrovert to see, because they're like, why isn't he talking? But I think that's what I talk in my book, is both sides have difficulty with that, because extroverts want the introvert to talk, and introverts are like, why are they pushing me to do something I'm not?
Right.
So there's the challenge with it. But I think slowly you find the ways to be almost like extroverted, but you still have the tendencies with it.
Is there an action item that you can speak up from your book that can kind of be an example of what you just mentioned in terms of like how an introvert can navigate a extroverted world?
Yeah, it definitely takes listen actively. That's something I talk about. It's a skill to have. Listening to conversations, being engaged, body posture is important. Looking at people, eye contact is important to keep them and tell them that you're listening to them, to smile. That's what helps me. If I feel like I'm too quiet, I tend to just be smiling more, just to give people the idea that it's not that I'm being rude. It's just I don't have the energy to talk right now. Once I do have the energy, I'll talk and maybe create some conversations. But when you are just listening, it's important to keep in mind what other people are talking about, so you can maybe follow up on something that somebody else is talking about. If they're talking about work and they hear didn't really have a good day when they're talking about a story, they're complaining about their boss or something, let's say, you can kind of follow that up with, so how's work now? Are you still dealing with those problems? That tells the extrovert, oh, he was listening to me, and that goes a long way, just to make sure conversations become more personable. That's a big step, and that's what I talk about, kind of moving forward and finding that way for introverts to also be included in conversations when it gets to that scale.
Yeah. And there's probably a sense of uncomfortableness in there too, because it's something different. I mean, anything with, change out of your own behavior, change is uncomfortable for anyone, right? For me, like, I think I'll probably take it for granted. Being an extrovert, I'm like, oh, well, yeah, I can go ahead and just talk to someone, talk to someone random. But you're laying down some really concrete and great things here that maybe an introvert needs to hear in order for them to put themselves out there in a way that's comfortable for them. And something that I also want to add on to that is probably boundaries too, right? Like boundaries, healthy boundaries of, hey, like I, like you said, hey, don't want to talk right now, or just like giving yourself that person who may be introvert some space to be like, okay, like, when can I jump in? Because I feel like everyone's like, oh, like for an extrovert, I'm like, okay, when can I jump in? When can I jump in? But for an introvert, it's very unique because you can kind of have that opportunity to and listen actively and jumping in when it's the right case. Let's go on the other aspect of your book, which is about overcoming mental health struggles. And I know we kind of talked about your healing journey already. But what can we gain from your book that can really help us with our own mental health?
In my book, I talk about feeling better about yourself, and the mantra that I use for the book is be true, be you. And I talk about using that to be better about your mental health, to feel like yourself again, to look in the mirror. Sometimes for me, when the mental health is bad, I just, over contemplate, I overthink, I hesitate, I can't think smart, or my decision making is very poor. Sometimes, when I'm really in a brain fog, when I'm not really thinking, I can just stand in place. And that's like a really lonely place to be in, when you just can't figure out the direction you want to be going towards. So in my book, I talk about how you can accept yourself and not feel so negative about yourself, and kind of keep that mantra, like I'm saying, is just be true, be unique, be honest. As much as it might be scary to be upfront, but it might even be beneficial to just say to people that you're just not feeling your best, or you might just be upfront about how you're feeling during your day. Just give people the better idea of what you're going through. Some people just they can't read your mind, so they don't know what everyone is going through. So it might be a little awkward to try to tell people that you're not feeling the best. It might not look as appealing to say that. Everyone's just expecting you to be good. You get the generic good after how are you, but not everyone is really feeling that way. So it's good to like carry the conversation after that good, to kind of keep that mindset of, hey, maybe he's not actually good. He's just kind of using that as his, barrier to try to like protect himself. But you just never know what people are going through. And that's something I touch on is you want to keep that not surface level conversation, but kind of deeper and try to get a better idea of who they are, who the people you're talking to are, and what they're dealing with.
Right.
As well.
Yeah. The question of how are you doing probably needs to end. Like it's really a cop out for anyone to be like, okay, good, and then keep it going. That's why an important question of this podcast and when I started with is how is your mental health? Because I don't think you can really. I mean, you could say good, but you have to expand on why. Are you getting achievements? Are you winning at things in your life? It's a question that I hope can be in more friend conversations or relationships, and that can spur more conversation to let people know how they're actually doing. And it's true what you're saying. Like, we don't know what people are going through always, because some people just don't want to say it. Some people don't want to say, hey, I'm going through something, because they feel like a burden. And I think that's something that you brought up before. I think it's kind of teeter-tottering between boundaries, right? Of, hey, like, do we want to keep pushing on that person that's saying, what's going on, to kind of get them to talk? Or do we say, kind of notice that body language that you were talking about, or tone or annotations of, hey, like, maybe there's something going on with them, but they need time to really process it. And that's where you can follow up, like, hey, like, here to talk if you ever need anything, right? And man, like, it's just the whole burden part, right? You brought up even in your own healing journey. And I feel like it's part of our ego, right? Part of our ego to, hey, I can figure this out. I can deal with anything that comes my way. But we really do need other people to talk to, give us that different perspective. And that's why we have therapists, give us a different perspective on what we're going through, because the perspective that we have of life, of all of our experiences leads us to one angle. But we also just need another person to be like, hey, like, have you looked at it this way before? And that could be the thing that saves us. And that's the thing that's crazy, because we have these ambitious, me and you have this ambitious mindsets of, I can get through anything, I could work through anything. But sometimes we get in our own way. Yeah. And that's the tough part about it, is accepting that, hey, like, you can let someone in, and let's not get in our own way to figure out how we can keep moving forward.
Yeah. And I think, like, what you're saying is, you find that when you're an athlete, people are saying, if you don't win, they even say, to the extreme point, you failed. I hate using that word, because I really don't think it's possible for somebody to fail. I think you can have setbacks, but that doesn't necessarily mean you failed. Even if it comes to a point where you lost a championship, like, you still got to that point. You still learned something from that. Mm-hmm. So I don't think should be seen or have that perspective as a failure. I think mistakes can be more costly when you talk about, making mistakes, but it's also you're putting an effort towards it. I was always trying to find the positive outlook on those negative thoughts. And as you're saying, like, as the extrovert you are, which is awesome to kind of have those two perspectives, where I'm more introverted, you're more extroverted. Mm-hmm. I'm always envious of extroverts that can just talk whenever, like, mm-hmm. I have to plan when I have phone calls. I have to plan before I actually press the dial button to know what I want to say, because I just get so worried about what I want to say. I stutter sometimes. So it's like, I have to actually prepare for a call. Like, whenever I see somebody just pick up a phone and start answering, I'm like, you didn't even think before that? Like, I'm just so jealous of that. But introverts can just, I think it's not always a bad thing, because people want to be more intentional with what you say. So I don't take it so hard, but it is easy to just say, wow, I wish I was like that, you know? But
trust me, there are some things that I say, I'm like, oh shit, I shouldn't have said that. But that's because I didn't think it through, right? And as an introvert, like you said, you were planning stuff out. It's probably better that way. Sometimes I'm just blurting stuff out, or I'm saying, filler words like and and things that my community have already heard me say a bunch of times. And I'm working on it for 26, I swear. And the last thing I want to touch on your book is a quote that you had in. You said in kind of a message of your book is, living a sometimes an uncontrollable roller coaster of a life while maintaining a motivated, disciplined, and effective mind. I think you kind of already touched base on this, but I kind of want you to expand why that message is just so important to be conveyed through your book.
Yeah, for sure. It's tough. Like what I've been saying, it's not easy to keep a disciplined mindset, to stay effective, to stay in the lane that you want to be in. And again, it's about staying present, being in the moment. That message really hits deep for me because it's what opened my mind to my true passion, to keep that disciplined mindset, because it's not going to happen overnight. It's going to take practice and skills and preparation to really get to that point, to feel like yourself and to feel ready to conquer anything. And again, like as an athlete that I am in my professional world, I always look at things like I want to do the best. Even in, like, I ran a marathon last year and I still was looking to beat a time, even though it was 26 miles. It's just, I'm a competitor when it comes to it. And I had a time in place. And like, I want to go for that. It's just something that keeps me going. So to kind of keep, and not to think too heavily on that either. Like if you don't beat it, then it's not the end of the world. That's the big thing.
Right.
When you set a goal, you're like, you want to beat it, you want to get to it, but it's not always the outcome, and you have to stay content with your struggles too, and that's the important part of that message.
Yeah, I mean, you ran 26 miles. I think that's an accomplishment for anyone. We're not even supposed to be running marathons. I don't know if you heard that medically, but we're not even supposed to be running marathons of how much damage it does to our body. But you ran 26 miles. That's like that's an achievement all of a sudden, regardless of what the time is. Like, and I get it. It's our all or nothing mentality, or cognitive distortion. Sorry, and how if it's not this, then it's a failure. Like you said, if we didn't make this mark, if we didn't make this milestone, it's a failure. And that's what holds us back. That's what really sets us back from what we want to achieve and achieving the highest version of ourselves, because we set a kind of, it's either an A or nothing mentality. And that is such a detriment to people that have perfectionism and have that all or nothing cognitive distortion, like you mentioned. And we can be better at it by allowing more compassion with ourselves. Like you said, you can't set that goal, but find that positive light around what you just did. As I said, 26 miles.
Yeah.
Even though you didn't beat that time, that's something that not a lot of people can say that they can achieve in their life. So Lucas, we've talked about your journey with mental health, your journey about being an introvert in an extroverted world, which led us to your book, and kind of that message that it's conveying overcoming mental health struggles and society's expectations. What are the last few messages what are the last few messages that you have about your book that you want to convey to the world right now?
The big piece to it, when you're feeling down, when you're feeling not like yourself, is to just find, it's going to be tough, but find that light through the struggle. I say that because I didn't really have a passion for a while. I didn't really know what my passion was until college. So just know that it's going to take time, that there'll be struggles. It's not going to be rainbows and sunshines every day. Like, you just have to be real with yourself. Like, there's going to be challenges, but if you can just find the light, the positive attitude, that goes a really long way. And I'm a big motivational quotes guy. I like to use motivational quotes when it comes to different things. But a big one for like introverts myself is work hard in silence and let your success make the noise. And that's just a quote that stuck with me back when I was dealing with things. It helps just kind of reset my focus on that not everything has to be said, not everything has to be validated. You can still get to where you want to be without getting that validation. Like, it's important to get the approval for yourself rather than others. It's kind of like when you're on an airplane, people are like, put your mask on before you help others.
Right.
You want to make sure you're healthy and you're good before you're worrying, more concerned about somebody else, basically. So prioritize your mental health, find the positive light in the darkness as much as possible, and keep that that disciplined attitude and positive attitude as much as possible.
Yeah, I mean, you touched on two great points there: internal validation and positive thoughts. Touching base on internal validation, it's a very hard thing to do. Like, we are so hard on ourselves. What has been something, whether that's the mantras or something else, that has helped you really help with validating yourself and having that be okay versus seeking validation from other people?
It doesn't really have to be a mantra, but if there's something else that maybe look at yourself in the mirror, kind of give that, it might be weird, but people actually say you learn a lot from just talking to yourself in a car ride, when you're alone, in the mirror, in the bathroom. Finding something that gives you that escape in a way, that gives you that freedom to really embody what you're dealing with. It's not good to ignore those negative thoughts. Like, a lot of people just kind of tell you, like, try to move away from it, but you actually want to listen to what your body's telling you. Mm-hmm. You actually want to actually embrace those dark thoughts so that it can prepare you for something deeper or darker that's coming that way. So you just want to keep, again, like I said, like a level-headed attitude towards being yourself, finding the light in the darkness, and just trusting yourself. Because it takes a lot, but I think a lot of people doubt themselves when it comes to those struggles. They're not always expecting it, but always bet on yourself. That really will go a long way.
Yeah, betting on yourself and trusting yourself is huge. And that's how I think we get the internal validation, because if we don't trust ourselves, we don't believe in our abilities, we don't believe that we are enough, that's when we start seeking for external validation. And that's no fault to ourselves. That's how we were brought up, right? Through schooling, through our parents. Like, we were raised in that environment to seek external validation. But as you grow older and as you find yourself in the journey, I believe between the 20s and 30s, even a little bit after that, you're still finding yourself. We always will. We'll find ourselves. We're going to try to keep finding ourselves throughout the rest of our life. But what you said, to trust yourself, believe in yourself, those are two great things to start with, to be able to seek validation from yourself versus from other people. And then, so you talked about internal validation, positivity. How can we be more positive in our life? Because, like I said before, like, on a daily basis, our thoughts are 85% negative. Yeah. So how do we lower that number on a daily basis from your perspective?
Staying calm, and I know it's easier said than done, but like finding that attitude where you're not, rushing to defend yourself, but you're just kind of level-headed, like not getting too high in your emotion, not getting too low in your emotion. Just staying that level playing field is going to help you so much. And it takes practice, kind of maybe talking to yourself in a more stronger tone. Maybe that will help kind of give you the appreciation of how do you defend yourself when people are kind of talking down on you, or someone that thinks they're better than you. It's definitely, like, I think it's a fear that people think they're too egotistical or they're too arrogant to think about themselves. I don't think we do too much. Like, we don't do enough of it. We don't really think about ourselves. We're always worried about how other people are thinking of us, which in reality, like, nobody is really thinking about you. They're thinking about how they are. Yeah. I'm always, like, as an overthinker that I am, with those negative thoughts you talk about, I'm always like, I shouldn't have said that. I should probably worded that differently. You just kind of rethink what you should have said. I guess you just take that as practice, try to learn from it, and not get too down on yourself. Try to change those negative thoughts into positive ones. Even if you're, sad, think of yourself, like, why are you sad? What are you doing that's affecting that? If typically, like, when you're anxious, it's probably because there's something that's making you anxious. It's not just because it just happened. Like, there's something that definitely caused it. So you just have to read into yourself a little bit more to know why you're feeling that way. Because anxiety doesn't just pop up out of nowhere. It's something that is happening to your life that just happened over time, that you're just kind of using it as a kind of just depending on it almost, where you're just like not expecting it to hit you so negatively. So just kind of keeping that positive, playing level line through things like that.
Yeah, like you said, obviously it's easier said than done, but
Yeah.
you can build in routines and mantras, like you said, to start your day in that way. A lot of neuroscientists and other personal development and mental health influencers say, start your day looking in the mirror and say something positive about yourself, or hey, today's going to be a good day, because that is what's going to set you the tone for the rest of the day. We know bad shit's going to happen sometimes, right? It's the dichotomy of life. Like, we can't have one thing over the other always, and to navigate those is to like you said, have a positive mindset, staying calm and trusting in yourself and the decisions that you make. If you reflect on those and that's maybe the decision that you should have made, that's okay. Now you know for next time. So
Yeah.
a lot of great things here. Again, Lucas, I should say, thank you for coming on here, talking about your book. Can we, kind of let the people know how they can find your book and how they can purchase it?
You can go on Amazon. It will be published and ready to go with the exact link on a website my buddy made for me. Kudos to Evan Barrick for helping me out with that. You'll publish it. It will be paper copy, and you can buy it Amazon January 26th.
Awesome.
Yep.
And I will put those links down below so that you guys can get a quick access to it. All right, man, let's get into our big 3 questions. These are the last 3 questions that will leave the final mark on my audience and on the listeners. I'm switching it up. It's a new year, so we're switching it up. So my first question is, what does becoming the highest version of yourself mean to you, and how are you doing that today?
Being unique, being yourself, being authentic, and not apologizing for it, not saying sorry, just going about your day, feeling genuine, authentic, keeping that energy going, and accepting yourself for who you are.
Beautiful. What are your New Year's resolutions?
Ooh, New Year's resolutions. Definitely staying active as much as possible, running. I want to keep that going more regularly, so running twice a week instead of every other week, or not even a week. So just staying active more, and honestly, like finding a routine that keeps me, regulated and not feeling so, down. So just keeping a regulated routine is important for 2026.
There we go.
Yeah.
And my last question to you is, what is something that we can do as a society be better at?
Just accepting people for who they are and not criticizing people for what they do or who they are. Just being more gentle with people is important. Not thinking you have to, jump down people's throats every time. Like, actually get a better understanding of, maybe they're going through something. Maybe they spoke out of turn because they're actually going through mental battles, mental challenges. So just think on a deeper level, and you'll definitely find the satisfaction doing that.
Mm-hmm. Yes, we need more compassion in this world. Please, people, please give more grace and compassion.
Be kind.
And with yourself. All right, guys. So if you liked any part of this episode, please clip it, tag me and Lucas in it. And again, go check out his book. The links will be down below. And as always, let's fall in love with the process of getting better every day and becoming the highest version of ourselves. Love y'all.